Hey, how's it going? I'm Ron.
I'm Zach.
We're here on another episode of Influences, and we're getting quite a few of these under our belt here. Want to thank you guys for checking us out on these and indulging our whimsical musings on all things that influence us. So today,
Thought we'd do something a little bit of deviation from our normal influences segments, which tend to be about bands or expressions of art as a whole. Perhaps even interviews. However, today we are all alone in this cold, desolate world. But thankfully enough, we have songs, which is the subject of today's influences, or more specifically, songwriting.
songwriting, the heart of the music world.
Considering that Widetrack 3 is very near, we thought we'd kind of delve into songwriting, considering that is, when you boil it all down, the main premise of most musical works, the writing of the songs.
Yeah, I mean that is it in a nutshell. And yeah, as Zach said, today we received the master recording of our new album. So now it's just about getting all of our ducks in a row and getting it shipped out to for replication and get it on all the Spotify, iTunes platforms and such, and raise a little bit of awareness so that we have an opportunity to get it in your ears. We're very proud of this work and really looking forward to getting out and playing it live for you guys. So we thought we'd kind of talk a little bit today about different songwriting processes and how they've influenced us and how they will go moving forward, how we're looking at those type of things.
So by golly, we've stood here long enough. Let's begin.
Indeed.
There are many different methods of which one can start off a song. Starting is usually the hardest thing. You can start off with a hook, as Wikipedia will tell you, is the surefire way to write a hit single. But we like to think that there are more artistic ways and such to write a song.
That is a really good point. Throughout the years, trying to write my own songs, I picked up a lot of the craft of lyric writing book, how to write a hit song, all these things, and none of them work for me.
I mean, it's, it depends on the style of music. Everything's super specific, and when you go with a option like, Wikipedia, bless their hearts, but in this instance, not so much. When you go for something like that, it has to be very specific, or it's going to be of little help to you.
Yeah,
because a lot of it's the broad stuff like, well, you want to think of stuff that sounds cool that isn't necessarily exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's kind of like music lessons, There's some people do better with the very strict curriculum of here's point A to point B, and here's how you learn to play. And other people just do it by feel. And then some people kind of incorporate both. And then other people incorporate both in their own unique ways. So there's no right or wrong way to write a song. There's great examples of every type of songwriting. But we just thought we would talk about some of our favorite artists' processes and our own in relation to that. So,
all right. Starting off, we have kind of a group of people that's fairly new. Stephen Wilson from Porcupine Tree and Bruce Sword from Pineapple Thief, which is a band that I highly recommend, along with other artists such as Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. Their method is, being the main songwriters of the band, a lot of their method comes from, writing all the music and then just saying, hey, I need a band to play all this with. And with that also comes the band saying, well, hey, let's help you out with that. So for Pineapple Thief, for example, there's a little video titled "The Making of In Exile." It's how the song "In Exile" came to be a song. It's very good, very short. I recommend it. But anyways, it kind of just goes into the brief process of, well, first I sit and wait for the idea to come into my head. Then, we get that down, share it with the band. The band does their own thing, and with all the technologies of today, they can do it from the comfort of their own home. And after we do all that, we kind of see how each other feels about it, and if we're all cool with it, we take it to the next level, we record it, and voila, it's a song. And that method seems to be kind of the common one. It's, well, each person does their own thing and it kind of piles on, and maybe the person says, well, now that you've added that, I'll change this up a little bit or whatnot. So everything just kind of becomes cleaned up and cleaned up and cleaned up to perfection from each member.
Another band that I would include in there would be the Police.
Yes.
And I think the common idea with these guys, with these bands, is they have it's almost like a solo project
Under the name of a band.
under the name of a band. But the crucial thing is these solo projects, band, whatever you want to call it, they have a main writer, but that music has to be performed by these specific musicians that they're playing with. All these bands, the Police,
even the Beatles, you could say.
You need
Paul and John.
You need George and Ringo. You the Police. You got Stuart Copeland and Andy Summers, Porcupine Tree and Pineapple Thief, who have share a drummer. Now that Porcupine Tree is broken up, their drummer Gavin Harrison plays with Pineapple Thief.
And you just don't play Pineapple Thief stuff without Gavin
Yeah,
Harrison.
I mean,
that's what it is now. It's part of the music.
Yeah, these musicians are irreplaceable. They're and so it is an important part of the songwriting process that these guys have a certain sound, and then you got other guys like Michael Jackson, for instance. Quincy Jones will handpick, or Steely Dan is a great example, where they'll handpick musicians specifically for a particular song they're working on. They'll say, oh, this Steve Gadd would be a great drummer for this song, or so-and-so would be a great guitar player for this song, and it changes song to song. And so it gives them a lot more of a creative control in a big picture sense.
Because, we can't lie, we've all done the thing where we think, man, what would be a cool supergroup band, take one person from this band, one person from this band. Sometimes I think of that with Rush, and I end up with Rush, but I digress.
Well, speaking of Rush, what's their process?
Oh, in fact, no, I don't. Well, their process, along with Elton John, is they do it from the lyrics. So they write the lyrics out.
So that they have a shared songwriting thing. Rush is a three-piece. Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, the bass player and guitar player, write all the music. Neil Peart, the drummer, writes all the lyrics. Neil Peart writes lyrics and gives them to Geddy and Alex, and they write music to the lyrics. That's an interesting way to write music to lyrics.
I do think it is fairly common, though. It's a lot easier when you're in school to think, oh, I got some lyrics on my mind, then yes, I have a guitar part on my mind that I am just aching to go home and lay down instantly. It's a little different when it comes to instruments. Lyrics tend to be the most relatable thing to a lot of people, and what people gravitate towards. So if you have music that's centered around the lyrics, it incorporates the feel.
It's great because, Elton John is a great example, and Bernie Taupin writes these lyrics, and he has these lyrics. Elton John takes them, and he says, wow, let me bring these to life. And then he writes the music and the melodies to sing the lyrics. And one wouldn't be what it is without the other. Both are crucial ingredients.
But speaking of piano players, we have the next method, which artists such as Tori Amos and Fish from Marillion, or even during his solo work, used, which was a lot of improvisation.
Well, Fish, I was talking about with the PH.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Fish, the jam
That's
band Fish.
Also.
Yeah.
Oh, that Fish. Oh, there's like.
Yeah, yeah. There's two fish. Yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta
yeah.
get
My
different
mistake.
spelling.
My
Although
mistake.
Fish from Marillion, he's a lyrical genius, and he definitely has a lyrics first approach.
Yes, that's
but
totally what I meant.
He does both, actually, I think, but we'll get back into that.
Anyways.
But okay, so yeah, we have Tori Amos and the jam band Fish. Both have a very improvisational style that when they're playing an when they just make something up on the spot spontaneously, you'll sit there and think, "Wait, is this a song that exists already?" They're so good at it that
It would take a super fan to notice if it was really an improvisation, you know?
yeah,
Which I think is a amazing thing. Like, imagine just sitting down and saying, well, here comes a song.
yeah.
There it is.
With some people, they have such a connection to the immediate muse, and it's just the way that they've practiced all their life. Yeah, and other people are much more structured. They need to do it in stages, in steps, and so
All depends on the band and person and such.
Yeah. The thing that I would also say about Tori Amos, which
is
yeah.
pretty interesting, is when she's recording, she records both her voice and her piano at the same time because they're like part of the same song. You know, it's like playing a guitar with only one hand. In a way, it's like, well, that's part of the same instrument that I'm trying to play.
Yeah. Her voice and piano are all one instrument.
Same thing with Elton John, where you can almost hear it in the live performances and such, where things line up. You know, it's really interesting. Say you hear one where everything's recorded separately, and one where piano and vocals are recorded together. There's subtle differences that are always really, really neat to hear. Speaking of recording, though, we have a band who I think is one of my favorite bands, the Mars Volta, and more specifically, Omar and Cedric.
That's Cedric for you uninitiated. We kind of nicknamed him Ceddy.
That's how you know the dork levels are reaching critical altitudes, but I digress. Omar writes a lot of stuff, and you know, it's all great as seen by his solo work, but it's no Mars Volta without Cedric. And like a lot of their band photos will tell you, and their bands will tell you, they're two peas in a pod, so to speak. It's kind of the Omar and Cedric group in a way. Not to say that you can ever play a Mars Volta song with a different lineup, because you really can't. The musicians play a very key role in the sound. For example, John Theodore. No one can play John Theodore like John Theodore, nor with the future drummers to come. And same with all their members, but that one's pretty standout.
They are a pretty interesting thing, though, where they just go with the musicians that they have at the time, and their albums.
Kind of
it is
veered
kind of
towards-
like Steely Dan in a way where they'll handpick these musicians and they just, that's their sound. The last album they put out before they disbanded, Nocturnicate, has a lot different keyboard player, which informs their sound in a totally different way from their original keyboard player.
as well as a different drummer, which
Yeah.
you wouldn't really think so, but
Really
It's
gives it a
very
totally
dynamic.
different vibe, and they went with it, and so that became part of the songwriting. Was, here's the musicians we're working with, and here's the music I have in mind. It just kind of intersects in a cool
not
way.
only that, but I'm pretty sure they know this, because when recording, a lot of the times, they won't let the member who's recording hear the rest of the band. So, you know, you'll kind of have to say,
there's
"Oh, you're
like-
off from the drum track." Well,
Yeah.
what do you mean? What drum track? But,
Here's my guitar part. Play along with
But
this. Yeah, I got
I do
it.
think this
Yeah.
kind of reinforces the idea of having the musicians be like the key part of the music. You know, like one person comes in with an idea, usually Omar and Seti or one or the other, and the rest of the band just kind of plays to it, and what they play is a very key, important part. You know, it would be totally different with another musician. You know, and not being able to hear the other members is like not being able to conform with this sound that you hear, you know, so it's kind of an interesting thing, I think.
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit more of a gut reaction to what you're playing. Maybe like the drummer is just playing along with Omar's guitar track, and that's all he's got to go by. And there's sometimes having limitations in songwriting can actually
Allows
help
you to, you know, because you feel the need to include more, so to speak. But
yeah, there's
that's
some
all.
Speculation going on into the real processes of these guys, but I imagine from
I imagine it's
Yeah.
far beyond us.
yeah, it's
put it
really
simply.
interesting. It would be great to hear more about some of these. Yeah.
But by golly, we have yet more writing methods. The second to last one that I believe we are going to cover, because to clarify, I will say that so far we have covered writing lyrics kind of first and then writing music. We've covered writing or improvisation and playing along with the lyrics, that the song feels like a single moving entity instead of multiple moving all in the same direction, or however you want to make that analogy. And we've also covered having a songwriter with mostly a band kind of include, which ties into the same thing. The Steely Dan, who are the best members for this, or the members are going to pick the sound. But now we have something that we are a very, very strong supporter of, which is the Soundgarden method, which goes as follows. Anyone can bring in anything, anything goes, you know, but the idea has to get through and be approved by every member of the band. So say somebody brings in something and says, man, I like this, and two other guys say, yeah, that's really cool, but one of them says, no, doesn't go. But at the same time, there's no limitations to where, like, hey, I brought something in, and no, you didn't. No, get that out of here. You know. So there's
Yeah, it's interesting. They take that even to the level of Matt Cameron, their drummer, writes on the guitar,
yeah.
and he'll bring something in, he'll make a demo of it at home, and he'll bring it in, and there's been times where Chris Cornell has looked at him and said, let's just use your guitar track on the album. I love the way you played it, and then if we play this live, I'll learn it and play it, but it's great as it is. He doesn't. There was such a lack of ego in their process that they just had a completely, because all four guys respected each
And
other
they
so much.
knew that it was about the music more than about, like, that's not my guitar track, so I shall not be of any part of it. You know, and one of my favorite Soundgarden songs, in fact, it is my favorite Soundgarden song, Head Down, off of Super Unknown, was written pretty much entirely by Ben Shepherd, and you know, the members of the band did their own thing, but they centered it around the core ideas, and you know, did the whole falling down the stairs tactic with the drums and all of that, and weird tuning, whatever it is, and you know, all that's really great. I think that is a key part to a band, is kind of eliminating the ego that inevitably, usually, comes with a band. You know, it tends to be a lot of their downfalls. Like, hear about bands all the time, and they finish a live show, they don't even talk to each other, they hate each other. They're doing it solely because that's their job, you know, and a lot of that can probably be simplified to artistic ego, and also, you know, getting sick of somebody just because you've been with them for so long. But
yeah, it's interesting. Like some of the Soundgarden songs. There's a couple I really like. One's called "Never the Machine Forever," and another one called "Room 1,000 Years Wide." And both of those, Kim Thale, the lead guitar player, wrote the lyrics and brought them in. And Chris Cornell sang the other guy's lyrics. He sings Ben Shepherd's lyrics. He'll sing Matt Cameron's lyrics. And then Chris Cornell has his songs that, you know, he writes completely. Like, he brings in Fell on Black Days. Hey guys, I have a song. Day I Tried to Live, Rusty Cage. Hey, I wrote these songs. Let's play them. And the rest of the band is like, well, those are great too. Jesus Christ Pose. That's one of the Soundgarden songs that has all 4 members credited on it. I suppose just by listening to the song that it probably was stemmed from a jam. They probably just started playing and so anyway, this method is very attractive
very important
to us at this point.
We believe that having each member of the band be a perfect part of a well-oiled machine is something to be feared.
Yeah,
it's a weapon, so to speak. If you have a band
something
where
to be,
anybody can bring something
enjoyed
in.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, I'm being a little dark here, but you have a band where anybody can bring something in. There's so much more artistic possibility while still retaining the main feel of the band. But
it's going to be interesting because we've had
lots of people play on the previous Widetrack albums.
Yeah, I've written all the music so far, and it has not been out of because I want to be the guy that writes the music. It's just because I didn't have other band members, and now I do. And so, since writing the new album and getting it recorded, Zach came into the band, and Brian Burleson, they're on the album, but they weren't there for the songwriting. So we're looking ahead and saying, wow, this next one will be even better because we'll
just
have...
based off the things that, Brian has put down on the songs already and completely changed them.
Yeah.
It's got my hopes
Sometimes
high,
that doesn't work. Like in The Police, for instance, and this is all a matter of opinion, but for me, when Sting wasn't writing the songs, I skip over the songs that Sting didn't write. But it was a band situation, so they kind of felt like for a while there, like, well, we want our songs on the album too, and
It's not just going to be Sting and the Policeman, no.
Yeah, Sting kind of humored them, but when they reformed, they all kind of acknowledged, yeah, Sting was the breadwinner of this band as far as songwriting goes, and that the strongest stuff came from one guy. Now, that's not the case with every band, but it is the case with some bands. We kind of feel like our best stuff is ahead of us because we've been limited by only having one guy doing everything, and now it's a matter of, we got 3 and looking at bringing in another drummer, obviously for live shows. Hopefully that person will elevate it even more as far as the songwriting process goes. And we try things we've never done, and that's exciting. So all these things kind of come to bear, are brought to bear to looking at the future and how exciting the songwriting can be from this point on. It's just getting started. So.
Well, I believe this brings us to our last method. So we were going to include Radiohead, but it just really occurred to me, we have no idea how they write their songs. I mean, you have any idea?
How do aliens write their stuff?
Well, that's the key. They're aliens. So,
yeah.
Case dismissed.
They're on another plane.
A lot of their things, they do their own
Whatever
thing.
they do, we won't see it coming.
That's a big thing about it. Whatever.
We'll have to catch up with it. And
Radiohead's main thing is we're just going to do us,
Yeah.
and
love,
the fact
love
that you
'em or
support
hate
that's
'em,
great.
They're Radiohead. No one like
But
them.
the final method is the method that we have used to write just about all of the songs so far. And it is the Tool method. Now, that may sound really fancy, but let's clear that up a little bit. Writing the song first and then writing the lyrics to the song. Soundgarden also did this. But, having the music out and then saying, let's see what the music is trying to say.
Starting with a core. Let's just jam. Let's just play.
Starting with a feeling, even.
Yeah,
whether
and
that
jamming
starts
your
on-
instruments, playing,
Yeah, whether
getting
it
a drum
starts
beat
on-
going, getting a bass line going, getting a guitar, wherever it stems from, and everybody locking in.
And then after the music is all done, like as of the upload of
Sometimes
this
the
video,
vocal is there in the process, just making sounds.
as of right now, the Tool album's music is done, but the lyrics and vocals still need to be written, which kind of goes to show it's a long process, even though all the music is knocked out first. Please.
Well, the music is the thing that takes the longest in a band like Tool, because what they do is they go down a road and try an idea and to its very as far as they can take it, and then they back up and they say, let's go down this other one instead, and let's go down this. Okay, then they go back to the one that once they feel they've exhausted all the possibilities, then they pick the one they like, or they scrap it and they go to another idea, and it's a very exhaustive process.
But you got to think, man, that's Tool.
Yeah, that's what makes Tool Tool. I mean, there's no one that can do Tool except Tool, and it's it's like anything else that's high art. It takes time, and and they exhaust all possibilities before they decide on what they commit to album. And there's a certain that's what works for them, and that's the confidence. It makes me think of the movie director Stanley Kubrick, is he only put out in comparison to a lot of his contemporaries, that he put out very few movies because he put so much research into just finding the idea of what he wanted to make a movie about, and then each scene would have all of, like, if he had a shot in front of a storefront, he would go and take pictures of dozens of storefronts and pick out the one that was perfect for that scene. He did that with every scene, and he did multiple takes with his actors.
So to boil it down,
yeah,
pretty much quality over quantity.
Yeah,
really is the key. And
well, some people can get the quality quickly.
I mean, yeah,
other
definitely.
people just take longer in the process.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, devoting a whole lot of time to maybe something small, just that little small thing you have is
like
real
Tool
special.
gets criticized a lot for how
taking
long
10 years for an album, but like,
you know what? Whatever.
Oh well.
Whatever it takes for Tool to do a Tool, we're lucky to be alive in a time when there's a band like Tool making music. As far as I'm concerned.
Isn't this great?
Yeah. Holy cow.
Anyways,
Yeah.
to conclude, I'd like to leave this off with a Da Vinci quote, which is, "Art is never completed, only abandoned."
Mm.
So take it as you will. Personally, I see it as, with the Tool method of writing, you're not ever going to complete an idea and say, well, there it is. We've done it. We've made the idea. We've found the maximum potential. We've done everything possible. It's the greatest that we could have ever hoped for. But they settle on something and say, all right, this idea, it's there, and it's as perfect as we're going to be allowed to make it, and we're going to have to move on to the next one.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where you'll look back at a song, and only in hindsight will you be able to say, oh, I wish I could go back and redo that. Or sometimes I wish I could erase that song. There's a couple Widetrack songs I wish weren't out there, but that's all part of the process,
Never tell.
It's not up to you. Once you release it to the public, it belongs to them as well.
But hey,
and people have things that they like and they take ownership of, and your feelings are, you've released it to the public. That's the other part of songwriting, is some people do it in a private ritual for themselves, and it's a wonderful thing on that level, and other people release their work to the public, and once they do, it's out there and it belongs to the world on some levels.
No matter what, if you feel like you've made a mistake, if you ever want to go back on a song, that's what playing live is for, as proven to us by Led Zeppelin, the real final entry of this list of songwriting methods, which is just in the studio, we'll get the song down, we'll make it good, we'll make it really good. But live, it's about the performance, about rocking. And no two live performances are ever going to be the same, because we're Led Zeppelin.
That's the exciting thing about it. They're a great balance of spontaneity and planning.
And now with all the bootlegs and such, it's like, wow, you can trade sounds of a band for like baseball cards. It's great. Yeah. Actually, it's not great. I want those.
I think that's one other thing that really quickly needs to be mentioned, is that Jimmy Page was the producer of Led Zeppelin. So
ultimately, that had like.
Yeah,
I should mention with Radiohead, we do know one thing, and that is everything about how you record it, how you write it. It all comes down to a part of your sound. Like if you have a producer that says, all right, I was thinking you're going to use these mics, your sound's ultimately going to be different than if you picked them out yourself and such.
Those picking of those mics is part of your artistry. and the more you know your equipment, the more that can facilitate your songwriting. You say, this song will be perfect with that vocal mic, or ooh, I'm gonna.
That bass is perfect for that line.
Yeah,
Such
let's
and
use
such.
a wire or a fretless bass on this one, or let's use a 12-string guitar, whatever. And the more you know your tools, the more control you have over the finished product of your song that you're coming up with. So that is a very important point. So, anyhow.
Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, so much more we could talk about here. We're just totally. This is just a little dip in the toe in the water of this subject. It's a
very vast subject.
Deep subject.
It tends to relate to music as a whole, considering that's
yeah.
Unless it's made via robot, how most music is made. Songwriting.
Yeah. I think one of to sum it up, probably the most important element that we try to push with music, songwriting in general, is each person is their own unique thing, and so for music to go through the filter of a person, a person being authentic.
Best thing you can do is be authentic.
Yeah, that's one thing that
let the music
doesn't
breathe.
exist yet in music, is your perspective. And when people try to mold, kind of mold their perspective to a pre-existing template.
So say, you try and sound like a band, or you try and make something intricate just because, well, that's too simple. I don't know if I like that.
Yeah.
You're ultimately harming your own music. A lot of music theory and such can be damaging, but that's if you use it the wrong way. Using stuff the right way, letting the music breathe, saying, all right, well, even though that's simple, I'm going to stay with it, or even though that's complicated, I'm going to stay with it. Being as authentic as you really can and not pushing yourself to sound like anything else is...
It's interesting. Last night, the Grammys were on, and it occurred to me, this is a popularity contest. This is not an artistic merit thing, in my opinion. And the thing about it is that a lot of people are making great music that would just never fit in that format. And it's the same old story of whether you're in high school or whether you're out on the social scene or whatever.
All at once now.
Sometimes you're just not cool to the people that are quote unquote cool.
Or here comes conform or be cast out.
Yeah. Yeah. Dork Prague alert. Anyway, so we want to encourage you to be brave about your artistry and just be yourself.
By all means, take whatever you can from all these methods. This is our analyzation.
Find what works for you. Now, there is no real rules other than don't suck. And only you get to say
if it sucks or not.
Sucks.
So
now, that
really,
when you put it out into the world, you got to be ready for people saying it sucks. We all experience that a lot. Even the best. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that say, I hate the Beatles. The Beatles suck. Well, I don't think the Beatles suck. And millions and millions of people, generation after generation, don't think the Beatles suck. But a lot of people do. And so you can't please everybody. And that is the kind of the point of proudly excluding and just being brave about what you do, because what you do is valid and it matters,
and there's nothing else like it.
The world needs more of that. The world needs more originality. The world needs more. I'm not going to lie about who I am behind all the masks that we wear for society. So anyway, not to get deep about that stuff, but this is just a subject we're really passionate about, and songwriting is the quintessential force for bringing
your ideas into physical manifestation.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. With that, one more needs to be said. Want to thank you for watching, and we will be presenting our new album here for you really soon. So stay tuned for that.
As we mentioned, we have the final mastered recordings of everything. So it's all down to, the specifics and the little stuff that is always required.
Yeah.
Alas.
If you haven't subscribed, please do. And
Feel free to share if you have any different types of methods of songwriting, or even not different. What types of songwriting methods you tend to use?
yes, I'm sure we left some things out. And
No
we
matter
would-
what type of music you write, it's always a universal thing. So
Indeed, would love to hear your takes on all this stuff. And also, if you want to keep up with our goings on, you can subscribe to our newsletter at widetrackmusic.com. So, until next time, keep on rocking.